Our next guest has been a passionate advocate for British Columbia in our Canadian Confederation. He was a key confidant of Prime Minister Trudeau. He was a senator, was on the first Canadian delegation to China in 1973. Imagine that, 1973, before Nixon. Those who know confirm that Expo 86 would not have happened without him, and one of his legacies is Canada Place. He was a key negotiator in the Columbia River Treaty, which has increasing relevance today, someone who has a deep insight into where we have been and where we might go. Please welcome Jack Austin.
Good evening, everyone. And of course, my first comments tonight, two thank yous really. The first to Sam and his team and his supporters for organizing these amazing events that put the public back into public policy. And the second is to you, the audience, for caring about the whys, the hows, and the whens of events in our very important society. Well, tonight I'm going to talk to you about some BC history, and I want to take my inspiration from Winston Churchill, who said, "The further backward you look, the further forward you see." My story is about our province, about the old BC frontier, what has changed, and the challenge of BC's frontier today. And I apologize for putting myself into this story, but Sam insists that I am a part of the story he wants told. In fact, he told a part of it, and I appreciate it. When Arthur Lang, who is now known as a bridge, honestly, asked me in April '63 to go to Ottawa as his executive assistant in the new Pearson government, I agreed to do it for 8 months. I thought it would be a great experience to learn the workings of the federal government and to learn from the new senior BC minister much of the political history of BC and its economic underpinnings. What I didn't expect was that I would be in Ottawa more or less for 40 or so years. But looking back, I have to tell you, I wouldn't have done it any other way. Every person, every issue, they taught me something about our society, about British Columbia, about Canada, about the world. But I confess, too, that I had a special interest. I was an assistant professor of law at UBC and asked by General McNaughton to prepare a legal opinion on the right of Canada to control the upstream flow of the Columbia River. At Harvard Law School, I did my thesis on the law of international waters as it applied to Canada and the US, and particularly as it applied to the Columbia River Treaty. I said I would go to Ottawa if I was added to the negotiating team as a legal advisor. And I found, when on the team, that I was the only BC person on that federal negotiating team. But from that time on, I tell you, I held lasting insights into how BC was viewed in Ottawa, and I committed myself to be BC's advocate with the Ottawa establishment. And in later years, I was honored by the title, the Devil's Advocate. Now, some of you will remember, and I look at the audience and I know not all of you will know this, that BC governments of all political stripes used the popular political approach called Fed bashing in their dealings with Ottawa. The Boss Johnson, the W.A.C. Bennett, the David Barrett, the Bill Bennett governments, they would all blame the federal government, liberal or conservative, of hostility or indifference to BC's interests, and we saw ourselves in that era as cut off from the rest of Canada, living behind the Rocky Mountains, and quite frankly, proud of our isolation. Former Mayor Jerry McGeer captured the mood when he said that while Vancouver was 3,000 miles from Ottawa, Ottawa treated us as if we were 30,000 miles away, and that was the old BC frontier. The rest of Canada, as you well know, is not indifferent to BC today. Japan, South Korea, China are major players in the world economy. BC is Canada's gateway to 60% of the world's economy. Our ports and YVR are key transportation hubs. We export minerals, agriculture, maybe even someday energy. We receive the goods of Asia and we send them on to Eastern Canada and the US. But more than that, our universities are expert in Asian studies. We receive thousands of students from Asia, and they go back, if they go back, and many of them do. Some stay, and we're glad to have them stay. But they go back, and they know Canada, and they know British Columbia. Well, as Sam said, Expo 86 was a major pivotal event which changed the political atmosphere in BC and Ottawa. It brought Vancouver world recognition. Every major nation was represented. For China, for example, it was the first time that they attended a World's Fair since the 1920s. We had 22 million visits in 5 months, and the people of British Columbia proudly turned a great risk in Expo 86 into an outstanding success, and we learned a lot about ourselves in the process. Expo 86 was also an unprecedented collaboration between the federal and provincial governments. The federal government spent nearly $300 million to build Canada Place as the Canadian Host Pavilion and to convert it into a permanent asset for BC. Today, a convention center, a cruise ship facility, hotel and office tower, and to give Vancouver access for the first time to its inner harbor. And the 5 sails at Canada Place are now an iconic image for Vancouver around the world. Well, I served as Deputy Minister of Energy, Mines and Resources and Chief of Staff to Prime Minister Trudeau, and in August 1975 appointed to the Senate vacancy created by the death of my mentor, Arthur Lang. In the election of 1980, Mr. Trudeau won a majority but won no seats in British Columbia. Thus, I ended up in his cabinet designated as the Senior Regional Minister for BC, and that brought me into the Expo 86 dilemma. The Bill Bennett government had proposed the Expo idea in 1978, but by 1981, BC was in a difficult economic situation. The NDP called it, quote, having a party while BC's economy burned, end of quote. Mayor Harcourt said that the city would not contribute a penny. And Premier Bennett was told by Prime Minister Trudeau that he was on his own. In 1981, Bennett announced he was considering cancellation of the project. I had a top economic group in my department, and they strongly recommended Expo 86 as an economic stimulation. I went out to Victoria to show Premier Bennett the numbers. I said if he would agree to move forward, I would put the request again to the federal cabinet. He agreed, and I took it to the finance minister and cabinet, and I was turned down flat. So I asked to see the prime minister and privately made the case to him. He listened with no comment, and I thought my political usefulness to BC was at an end. But when we came to the Expo 86 item in the next cabinet, Mr. Trudeau spoke first and said he was taking the executive position to support Expo 86 on justifiable economic grounds and designated me federal minister for Expo 86. And I tell you this story, and it is the first time I've said this publicly, to put an end to the belief that Mr. Trudeau was indifferent or even hostile to BC. He said once in a speech in BC, we should climb our mountains and not just stay in the valleys. And I think my clinching argument was that Expo 86 would be climbing the mountains. So Expo 86 was the pivotal change in the BC psyche, I think from can-do to can-do, from Ottawa-do. And credit justly goes to the Bill Bennett government and so many others. British Columbians today know that the world does not owe us a living. Our future is in ourselves. It is in maintaining a healthy and well-educated population who are prepared to be achievers. As an old BC politician once said, we have to be lifters and not leaners. The next frontier then is what we want it to be and what we want to work to have it become. Thank you very much.